Black Panther's about to make more history in an unlikely place, Saudi Arabia. It's part of a huge shift in the kingdom where people will soon get to go to the movies for the first time in decades.
Saudi Arabia is lifting the ban on movies shown in theaters, but moviegoers can likely expect censored versions. The showing of Black Panther breaks a 35-year prohibition of motion pictures in the country. And while Black Panther has already celebrated international success, the film may have fewer difficulties adapting to strict guidelines than, say, other films, 50 Shades of Grey. Last year, Saudi Arabia announced that movies shown there can't contradict Sharia laws and moral values in the kingdom. And while the country has yet to issue a public list of what exactly the film restrictions will look like, we can gain clues from looking at patterns in the region. Experts expect restrictions on films to be similar to Kuwait, which has tighter censorship than several other Middle Eastern countries. So, as Variety notes, sex scenes, LGBTQ characters, and religious content are off limits. A Disney distribution exec told ABC Kuwait also limits films to have only one kiss and one curse.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
And all of those restrictions in Kuwait means most films shown end up being condensed to an hour. We can also get hints on what Saudi censorship could look like from its airlines. An expert told the New York Times alcohol and bare shoulders are covered with pixels, and don't expect to find films with sex or nudity on the in-flight entertainment list. These requirements aren't necessarily a concern for entertainment officials. AMC's chief executive told The Guardian, Hollywood has long ago dealt with the sensitivities of the Middle East and have adjusted film product accordingly. So with all of that in mind, this is how we envision a scene from Black Panther might play out.
And all this death, just so I could kill you.
That was Melissa Prax. I wanted to get more on this, so I talked to her earlier today about her story and what movie theaters mean to a society dominated by Sunni Islam in the Middle East. What's the strategy here, and where's this headed? Melissa, 35 years since a movie has played on the silver screen in Saudi Arabia. I wonder why now?
Absolutely. So as you just mentioned, it's been 35 years since a movie has played in a permanent commercial movie theater. And when the ban was lifted last year, actually at the end of December, there was one screening, but because it wasn't actually in a permanent movie theater, the premiere of Black Panther that's happening tomorrow is really taking this historic precedence. And the Crown Prince there in Saudi Arabia is really spearheading this economic change in the country.
I wonder, is this a commercial endeavor in some ways? Is it really a signal to the rest of the world that we're open for business and we want you to invest here? What do you think it is?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. The actual movie theater that this premiere is going to be taking place is at an AMC. And AMC has struck up a deal with Saudi Arabia. So that's going to be bringing in jobs, bringing in more revenue to a country that for years has heavily relied on oil to give it economic success. And you've been seeing more major changes kind of happening in the country too that are wrapped around economic endeavors. So we're seeing Saudi Arabia recently just had its first fashion week ever, now allowing women to drive and allowing women in sports stadiums. And again, all of those have less to do with empowering the people of the country and more with economic renewal.
Al Jazeera says last year 12% of Saudis are unemployed. But if you go down even deeper, Forbes says 30% of young people are unemployed. So this seems that may be a way to assuage some of the population that's unhappy.
Yeah, and you have a country where 70% of the population is under 30. So when you're talking about poverty rates and people who are kind of looking for employment opportunities and looking to contribute to society, those are huge issues that you're going to have to address. And also this Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, he himself is a young person. So I think that a lot of young people in the country are turning and looking at him, and he's been gaining favorability just because he is kind of the face of young people in the country.
Any movie that wants to make it to the big screen there cannot violate Sharia law. That's tough, especially if you're talking about Hollywood movies. So I wonder how many movies will actually make it there. In the story you said that if they do, they're probably going to be maybe condensed to an hour.
Yeah, so that hour condensing is kind of looking at the way that other Middle Eastern countries have have approached censorship, and Saudi Arabia will likely have censorship similar to Kuwait, but maybe even stricter. We'll just have to kind of find out as more movies kind of air. And I think, though, that Hollywood officials and screenwriters and stuff maybe will be looking at opportunities to write to attract the movies to get sent there.
This sounds to me, just to put a bow on this, like it's a crack in the door. They're not flinging them wide open, but they're saying we are open for business and we're somewhat open to the world culturally as well.
I think that they're kind of forced economically to make these decisions, and some of the past leadership has corruption scandals and other things where maybe they don't have as much control as they used to enforce kind of these strict, tight guidelines.
First on the docket, on the big billboard, Black Panther. All right, Melissa Prax in our Chicago office, thank you so much.
Thank you.